everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sally Buckley. I am the Managing Director of Pragmatic Success, LLC. And we have created a podcast series called Engineering Experts Group to honor the contributors of engineering. And I'm really honored to also have Ryan Berg on the line with us today. Ryan comes to us with 15 years of experience. He is a regional manager for the USA at Hatch Engineering, and his group is the water power business, and he's a water power business leader in the US and has international experience. Just to give you a little bit of background about Ryan, he has his degree, both BS and MS degrees in engineering from Utah State University. He has four engineering professional licenses. He's languaged in 3 languages, and also is published. And Ryan, I just want to thank you for joining us today. Our plan for our audience today is to talk about your project experience, where it all began, your leadership as where you felt comfortable as being a leader, and also members in your world that have been leaders for you or mentors for you. And then we're going to spend a little time talking about your future self, what you see in the industry you're in. So I would like you to just begin with where it all began with your father's business, if you don't mind. That was a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm more than happy to be here today, Sally. Thank you for this opportunity to join you today. So my engineering career, I've got a very interesting story and background in that my career started off at a very early age compared to most engineers who get into college and decide what they want to do. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a family in which my father owned an engineering company. And so at a very young age, we're talking 6, 7, 8, I was out working with survey crews and working on water, wastewater projects, and kind of being the little kid that just kind of gets to run around and hold the bucket and look at tools and really get to understand engineering at an early age. And as things went on, my father told me if I really wanted to be a part of his company, I needed to learn to be a draftsman. And so at my local high school, there was a drafting teacher there. I walked in one day and said, "Hey, if you can teach me how to draft, I have a job." And so he teamed me up with one of the best students there, and they taught me how to draft in 6 weeks. And so my father gave me my first real job, being a draftsman, working on all these new interesting projects as a high schooler. And so for me, I never knew nothing else besides engineering. All of my brothers are engineers, and that was just kind of the group that I grew up with.
So where did it begin? I mean, you talked a little bit, you shared your story about during college you were approached, I think, by Gannett Fleming. Can you jump into that a little bit? Because that's a pretty impressive beginning.
Yeah, so I had a really interesting opportunity in college. Being at Utah State, I fell in love with water and with hydraulics and large conduit systems. And I had the opportunity through some great professors there who were mentors to me to work at what was called the Water Research Laboratory. It's a world-renowned facility doing physical scale models. And so I got to work on dams and pump stations and do some very cutting-edge analytical techniques. And because of that, I got to develop these very close relationships with some of my professors. And one of them, Mike Johnson, who is still a very close mentor to me, one day walked into our graduate office and said, "Hey, I've got an interview for you." And it was with Gannett Fleming. He said, "I think these guys are great for what your career is and what you would like to do." And with that, I had my first job coming right out of graduate school, that I went and joined Gannett Fleming in their Phoenix, Arizona office to be a part of their dams practice. And I got to work with a great man by the name of Dean Durkee, and really helped them develop their dams practice, doing earth and embankment dam design and setting up dam safety programs in Hawaii, and really getting to work all over the USA and doing new projects that I'd never really done before with my dad's company, and really starting to branch out and use the expertise that I'd really learned in college.
That's a fantastic new beginning at a young age, right?
It was fabulous.
So do you want to speak, Ryan, about any specific projects that, we talked a little bit about your Panama project, and I'm genuinely intrigued by the complexity of that. And then we'll move on to other projects that, maybe at Hatch, and give your audience a real clear view of the excitement of what you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. My career, like we just said, after Gannett Fleming, I moved around to a few different companies as I was searching for specific opportunities and that I wanted for my career to help me develop as the best engineer that I could be. And I got a wonderful opportunity to work with Enel Green Power based out of Rome, Italy. And I was responsible for their North and Central American assets and helped them in developing new hydropower projects globally. And one of those opportunities I got was to lead a project called the Santa Maria 82 hydro development. It was a 25 megawatt run-of-river project in central Panama. This project was really interesting because this was really my first jump into big international development where I was in complete control of the project. I was working, my team probably had about 50 engineers spread across 6 different time zones. We had project meetings that would start off in English. They would go to Spanish. Then they would change to Portuguese, Italian. Sometimes they would be in French. And this would all be in the same 1-hour phone call as we were working internally with my global development team and with our outside consultants. And so I really got this flair or this opportunity really to work on these very interesting international projects with these international teams. And so being able to help lead and guide all of these different groups and with different languages and with people's different experiences, it was a lot of fun. Panama, it got to be a country that I loved. I still love it. I'd love to move there because of the opportunity I got to be there so often and work with the local people and work with my team in getting this project designed and ready for construction.
So how was it, Ryan, dealing with a multicultural engineering group? Not all engineers, of course, you have support staff. What was that like to coordinate the project?
Coordinating a project like this, it was actually easier than I thought it would be. As what we did was we made sure we just stayed highly organized and had very specific meetings dealing with certain pieces of each part of the project. Instead of involving all 50 engineers all at once, we had all these small little sub-working groups. But the most interesting thing to me was I had to learn about each and every country's customs and how they looked at projects, because some of our engineers that were working out of Italy, they designed projects the way they were accustomed to designing projects in Italy. Same with our staff in Brazil, in Spain, in Mexico, that they all had pros and cons to how they looked at hydro development because that's what was done in their specific countries. And so I had to help guide them about picking the best parts of that and adapting that to the local circumstances that were going on in Panama with our specific site. Right. And that took a lot of effort and a lot of guidance. There was a lot of late night phone calls and a lot of early morning phone calls, and working with the team to help them get over their regional points of view to be able to focus on the greater good for that project.
Now, Ryan, just for your audience, now, was your client based in Panama or was it on another part of the world?
So my client at that point in time, I was working for Enel Green Power. So my internal client was me. I was working, we were responsible for the development and construction of that project. And so you could say in a way, my true client was my board of directors that was based in Rome, Italy, that would occasionally check in on me from month to month. I'd have to give monthly reports to them on the progress and status and how we were doing budget and schedule wise, and making sure that we could get this project online within our specified commercial operation date.
Very complex, right?
It was extremely complex, but honestly, it was extremely rewarding. I look back on that project And I feel like that was the new beginnings for my career in really shepherding along more international development, because after that one project, there were more projects in Panama, in Uruguay, in Brazil. I was working on projects in Italy, looking at opportunities potentially in Australia. Just, it really broadened my ability to work globally, but also to think locally.
I understand that. It's, I've had those international assignments myself, or been on multicultural projects, and it's really complex. But like you said, it's very rewarding because we want to make, everybody successful. So, are you comfortable segueing into your work at Enel as an owner operator group? Because that segue from consultant work, if that's a comfortable space for you to jump into, I think you offer such a diverse background.
Yeah, it was really interesting coming from being a consultant to making that switch to being on the owner operator side. And the way I approached it when I joined the owner operator was I wanted to be their internal consultant. There were some efficiencies by being a consultant. I looked at things differently than an owner does. And that was really what they were bringing me in for. They wanted my outside expertise to really help them. But in turn, they really helped me to see the other side of the problem, because there's many things as owners, as they approach problems, they have to approach them differently than consultants do, because they don't have unlimited budgets. They have specific timelines and availability and reliability goals that they have to maintain, or they don't make money. And because of that, I feel like now, being back in consulting, I bring a lot of that owner's mentality to my projects. And I'll give you an example. There's many times in projects where an owner will explain a problem, the consultant understands it, and they, in their opinion, they want to do the ultimate best they can for the project. They want to fix it. They want to fix the problem so it'll last, whatever it is, it may last another 100 years. It'll never have to be fixed again. Where the owner will look at a problem and say, I only need this to last for 5 more years. Give me just what it's going to take to last 5 more years. So it's the difference between buying a Cadillac or a roll of duct tape, and finding that middle ground about what is best for safety, but what is best for the economic outlook for what you're really looking at. So it goes from an engineering analysis to a financial analysis to begin with, and what is best for the project and for what you're looking at, instead of let's make this thing perfect.
Yeah. So you really had that broad experience to bring to the owner operator, correct? To help them to decide the best approach. Mm-hmm.
I do. And even now, a lot of times when I get on the phone with my new clients, being on the consulting side, is I like to start off that, I'm one of you. I'm an owner. I understand what your problems are, what your constraints are, what your concerns are. I understand what keeps you up at night, because I've had that opportunity. And it's something I wish more engineers would get, to work with an owner, to be on their internal team and really understand what the real problems are. Because most of the time when an owner, and the hard thing is too, most owners, sometimes they struggle at actually explaining what the true problem is, because they are worried that, is a consultant going to take advantage of them?
Right.
Which should be in that position, but honestly, that's what happens from time to time. And so by explaining to them and really working with them to understand what their true problem is and talking about it and having that partnership is where we can bring a lot of that value to them and to their projects. Is I truly understand what your concern is. Now let's go try to find the best solution. And the best solution may be a $5 fix. It may be a $5 million fix. But let's do it within the constraints that you have in your investment horizons or timelines, or what is really the driving factor.
And Ryan, I think trust is a huge issue, and that languaging and the communication with your projects that you're going after and aligning up. I think your point is well taken about being on both sides of the fence, correct?
Yes. And I think too, I feel like I've had a lot of experience all over the world that I can bring to a lot of projects, that I can help explain to them that, look, what you're looking at isn't new. This is what we did in this country, and this is why we did it this way. And I feel like it's applicable to you because of these three things, or however that may be. And that experience really, I feel like, really helps.
It does. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And because it's just not on that regional basis, it's not on one specific part of the world or the country, having that flair or the opportunity to work on all those international projects can bring a lot of that value, that global value, back to a local project, or to whatever project that is my local project.
Absolutely. So your voice is really important as a representative to Hatch, correct? So I would love to segue into your, your work at Hatch as a regional manager. Forgive me. And I was I feel really honored that you picked up the call to accept the interview and the process of getting hired at Hatch. And you've really, really grown a lot in the time that we first met. So when you tie it all together relative to project experience, how does that weave into your experience with Hatch now?
All of this, it just keeps building. It's just the next step in where I want to be as an engineer and as a person in my career. That the opportunity Hatch gave me it's been amazing. To be able to come from leading huge global teams internationally on the owner side to help doing that on the consulting side has been extremely rewarding, and helping develop those strategies for growing our business, but also growing our business in a way in which we're reaching out to our external clients and leveraging what I feel is leveraging a lot of my owner's expertise, that I can come in and we can talk about what their real problems are and what their concerns are. But Hatch has given me a lot of room as a very young engineer in my career, and this type of a leadership position, I feel like, to go try new things, to try new strategies, because as our world is evolving, the energy market's evolving, and we can't do things the way we've always done it. That as the markets change, as the projects change, we need to be able to adapt and change with them and use the new best practices, the newest technology, and the newest techniques applied in a way that can be more beneficial. If that's for using digital technologies, if it's using new methods to analyze data, because we have new analytical software programs, what can we pull? Because a lot of our clients that have existing projects, they're just trying to keep them alive for the next 5 or 10 years. But also, what can we do to help them get an additional 1 or 2% of efficiency? Because that equates into dollars and revenue for them. What are the little things that we can do to help them? And this is where the owner side comes in. What are the small things we can help you do by looking at your operational data that's not engineering, but operations, to help you make more revenue? And I feel like that's a lot of the value I get to bring to Hatch right now. They have such a global expertise in engineering. I get to help bring the operation side to help augment everything that they're doing on their projects.
So you have a huge client base, and Hatch has a pretty broad footprint internationally, and it's been in this business for how long?
So Hatch as a company itself has been around for 65 years, but through acquisitions, our water, power, and energy group actually goes back over 100 years. It's
amazing. And so you're drawing from a lot of internal experience of gentlemen or women that have been there for a very, very long time. So what kind of projects are you working on right now with your teams at Hatch?
Yeah. So I guess just stepping back just a second, as we talk about Hatch and a lot of our internal teams, we have people on our internal teams that have been with the company for between 35 over 35 years. Some of them are approaching 40 years. And so that long historical experience is an amazing thing to be able to tap into, and to just sit down and just listen to these senior engineers talk about all of their experience, both locally and globally, and to be able to hopefully retain a lot of that information and knowledge before they step into the next part of their careers as they look towards retirement. But we've got this huge depth of people that we can pull from that's amazing. And so because of that, we're able to really look at a lot of different projects globally, from doing feasibility studies to helping clients out with rehabilitation to doing new development and everything in between. A lot of the projects that I work on specifically I work with a lot of financiers in their mergers and acquisitions of hydropower projects or the selling of assets. But I also then get involved in their operations analysis and going in and talking with their operators and helping understand what I would call the unquantifiable, having to help them understand or really be able to quantify what are the little things that they can do to increase their generation. How do we help them succeed in making that 1 or 2% efficiency gain or reliability or availability gains on their systems that they need? And it's really it's not really a science. It's something that's kind of on the social side of things, of just understanding their mentalities and their programs and applying engineering principles to make judgments, to come up with decisions or matrices of how best to apply what we know to help them improve their operations.
Can you identify a specific project that you're excited about? You mentioned, I don't want to, change this space here, but you talked a lot about working with your mining and metals group. So wherever you want to take your audience, just go for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. As Hatch is such a big company, I get the opportunity. I don't have to focus just on what we would call typical energy clients, utilities or independent power producers. Hatch has been working in the mining and metals space. They work in most of the major mining complexes all over the world. And because of that, I've been able to be introduced to many of these same clients and be able to bring to them renewable power opportunities or suggestions to help increase the profitability of their facilities. As we talk about the different mines, they use a lot of diesel power, and it's expensive. A lot of these mining locations are remote. How do they offset their internal consumption? And so dealing with this, we came up with a concept of what we would call hydropower in a box. We were able to design a mobile shipping container in which we can put in a couple of hydroelectric turbines and all of the ancillary equipment that goes with it. And we've got a unique way of connecting those up to either a stream or a pond that's used for their operations, that wastewater that they have, and to be able to generate power locally. But the system isn't permanent. It's something that they can move around the site as needed, and they can deploy it whenever they need it. And so coming up with these innovative solutions to help out any client in any type of situation has been very rewarding, because it's something you wouldn't normally get to do. Typically, if you're an energy consultant, you're going to focus just on energy and just work with utilities. But with Hatch, I get to work in these different sectors, and we get to talk with our mining and metals and infrastructure and other clients about how we can really help their energy transformation. Because going forward, as we see in the world today, with the increase in electric cars, electric buses, trains, the advancement of our transmission and distribution grid, power generation is going to become extremely important, because as we increase our demands for all of these electric vehicles, these EVs, we've got to generate the power. Where does that power come from? How can we do it cleaner and more efficient?
Right.
How does our energy transformation now change with the bigger introduction of hydrogen? And how do we generate hydrogen in a cleaner fashion? How can we tie that into hydropower development or solar or wind? And so there's all of these different opportunities that with my new role at Hatch and really helping oversee a lot of their power transformation, I get to be involved in, which is really exciting because from the beginning of my career, I thought I would always be designing roads and subdivisions because that's what I did as a kid. And then to see where I'm at today is amazing to me personally, because I never thought I would be where I am at today from where I started.
So this is exciting. Is there anything else that you would like to add about your projects? We'll move into our leadership space, but is there anything else? You're so excited about it. I mean, I would imagine it's exciting for your engineers to be in these new creative spaces. So that's what I'm thrilled about.
Yeah, I think with regards to projects, for me personally, there are so many exciting things and so many exciting things under development that will be coming out in the next few years. We're really getting involved. I've got new projects starting where we're looking into large-scale pump storage, both in the US and globally. And we're looking at tying hydrogen production into existing hydro projects, to helping out with new HVDC links that are going to be required to power the country as we go forward, as we start to remove our coal and other combustion generation facilities. And so there's so many new and exciting opportunities out there that I'm excited to be able to bring in a lot of these new, young, hungry engineers that really want to go out and change the world. And they can really do that through helping us be more efficient and come up with better solutions to our energy needs.
Absolutely. So, Ryan, I would like to take us into your role as a leader. But before that, I think you mentioned some mentors or leaders, your professors, or perhaps somebody again at Fleming, that really helped you to set your course. So can you talk a little bit about your own experience with leaders and how that shaped you as a leader, and talk a little bit about what you're doing now as a leader at Hatch with your teams, please?
Yeah, I would not be where I'm at today without mentors. Wherever I have been, I have made sure that I've always had a mentor. When I was in my early years at Gannett Fleming, like I said, I brought up Dean Durkee. He was great. He really helped set a lot of my foundation in how I look at projects. From Gannett Fleming, I moved on to Kleinschmidt Associates, and Mike Schimpf and Paul Williams. They really took me under their wing as very senior engineers who were getting ready for retirement. They just wanted to share information with me, and having the opportunity to work with them and really pick their minds, just not necessarily about how to look at engineering, but about business and about how to be successful. And they would pull me aside from time to time and just give me advice on, look, this is what we see you doing. This is what you should be doing. Where do you want to be in your career? And really them giving me that opportunity to succeed and fail, which was the most important thing. I failed a lot. There were a lot of things I did. I failed at. They would help pick me up and say, hey, you know what? You failed at this. This is how you should do it next time. Go try again. They weren't there to tell me exactly how to do everything, but they were there to help me when I needed it. And still to this day, I've got a lot of these mentors at Enel Green Power, Roberto Troiani, that others that I can reach out to at a moment's notice, and I still do, or they reach out to me through text messages and other things, that I know that they're there whenever I need them to ask a question. Even though I don't work with them every day, but they're there for me because they have a vested interest. And I like to be the same with my staff, that a lot of our younger mid-career engineers, they're hungry. They want to see that rapid career development. that I'm there for them. I want to help show them and give them the opportunities to succeed and fail. It's hard as a leader to say, I don't want my staff to ever fail. But I feel like for the most part, with a lot of our engineers, their greatest growth comes from when they fail. And so we just make sure those failures are in a way that they can learn from them quickly, but they don't affect our clients. They don't affect the bigger project as a whole. It's something that's easily recovered from. But those learning opportunities is what is so crucial, because many of us get into that trap that we only want the most senior of senior people. We want the cheapest person that's got 50 years of experience doing all of the work. But we need those senior people to help lead and guide and teach. And so I feel like, and that was the thing that was really put into me at a young age, or at least in college, was a good engineer teaches. That you're just not a doer. You're there to teach and instruct and inform and help people understand what you're doing and why you're doing it this way. Because most engineers, for me, at that young age, watching my father and my brothers and others, they had to go out and interface with the community every day. They had to go out and explain to them what they were doing, why their projects would be laid out a certain way. And so that was a huge impact for me, and how I work with younger staff is making sure you always take the time to explain to them and talk to them about the whys and let them ask questions. Because a lot of their questions, it comes from, they just want to know. They want to know why a business makes a certain decision. Why do you want to look at or talk with a client a certain way? Because they want to grow. They just don't want to learn from watching. They want the opportunity to try to. And I think the more we can do that, the faster we're going to come up or help develop that next generation of amazing engineers that are going to change the world.
And your audience is going to be lots of different, like we've got your university students, and you've got young engineers and agencies, owner operators and presidents of companies that will want to hear what you have to say. And I think, I think it's key, though, to talk a little bit about your okay with failing as long as we grow to get it right together. And a lot of that has to do with your forums or your leadership meetings or your connectedness with your teams of engineers so that they can make it right. And time and budget is also critical to the whole scenario with your clients, and how it's important in all aspects of your projects and your relationships.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest key thing here is, as we take a tangent here and we talk about failure for just a second.
Yeah. Most
failure comes because people don't communicate, or that lack of communication. And so as we fail, because most of us we will fail from time to time on many projects, or a part of a project that maybe we forgot a constraint, we didn't read the code right. What we have to do is take ownership of that and explain it. Explain to the client or our internal, external clients that, look, I missed this, and this is why. I understand it now. I've then put in the additional effort required. We've made it right. We can move on. We now understand it. We're in a position now that next time we're not going to create that same mistake. We're going to become more efficient. And as we look at it, that's how engineers have done it all along. There's been many projects throughout the history of time that have failed, and we learn from each and every one of them. And as we do that through better communication, the more communication that we can have, the less chance we're going to fail. But if we do fail, at least everyone's going to learn from it. Everyone's going to understand it, from our internal teams to the external teams, because everyone then, as we're talking more, has a better vested interest in the success of what we're all working on together.
Excellent. Ryan, do you have opportunities for some of your young engineers, mid-level engineers, to participate in client meetings so they understand the expectation, so that there's a synergy with the groups? And that's a growth opportunity, I would think.
Absolutely. I make it a point that I never go into a meeting without a junior engineer, that I want them involved from the highest levels when we're talking with CEOs of large international companies to talking with the regional engineer, that they need those opportunities to start interacting, because just because of a person's title doesn't mean they don't have something important to add. That a junior engineer could be sitting in a meeting and have the best idea that we really need to capitalize on, and giving them the opportunities to interact with their senior peers and have those senior peers have confidence in them and what they're doing is the greatest thing that we can do for their development and also for the growth of our companies. Because as we give them more opportunities to talk with people and grow, then they become faster. It's just that they become the mentor instead of the mentee. They're ready to bring someone on, and we can grow our teams faster and develop our business faster. The more opportunities we give them at a more junior, I won't say younger, but as a junior level, to be involved at the utmost reaches of all of our projects and of all of our meetings, because they'll pick up little things from better project management to budgeting to scheduling to how to have that difficult conversation, to have that unconditionally honest conversation that you have to have from time to time when things aren't going perfect on a project.
And then you can see how they interact and help them develop that. I've had plenty of experiences where I needed to be told, hey, do it differently the next time in a client relationship. So I really get that. And I think it's fabulous. One of the things that occurs to me, Ryan, is the opportunity to have strategic planning for not so much maybe your direct reports and all the reports in your organization, so that there's a planning strategy for your annual reviews, your planning forward, seeing a person in 5 years on some kind of a professional trajectory. I think that's really meaningful, and that helps sustain your teams, so they really want to be part of this future plan.
It does. I really like, for me personally, when I'm interacting with my teams and my different groups, is having those periodic check-ins more often, but having them less formal. That it's through that informal coaching or just giving them goals and opportunities on different projects or proposals. Okay, I want you to learn this skill, or find a way to develop in this area, or I want you to be able to have these conversations, and giving them all those opportunities, so that we're not at the beginning of the year setting, here's your 3 goals for the year, let's check in at the end of the year. We make it an ongoing process where we keep moving that target. As you accomplish a goal, let's get you another one. And as we prime that pipeline, as we give them more and more opportunities, we're able to go faster. But we're able to go faster together because we're all trying to do the same thing.
And the communication, which is key. You talked about that. It's critical for all the, if we're going to fail, we've got to talk about it. If we're going to go on a success track, and and there's always going to be challenges along the way. We're never without the challenge, but you add excitement to the challenge, which is great. Something that occurred to me, we talk about bringing in the youth and the future, right? The future engineers and your staff. One of the things that occurred to me, Ryan, was you've got a group of very senior, potentially retiring engineers in your space. And one of the things that we did at Bechtel, which I thought was profound, was to create a fellowship or a group of fellows that had continued consulting with the organization, so that you don't lose all that great wisdom and experience. Does that make sense? I mean, to keep these relationships flowing.
It does. And so we have many staff at Hatch that are in that exact position, that they've decided to either retire or partially retire from day-to-day operations, but they are available to really assist, and on that as needed on-call basis, however you want to frame it. Because they still want to be involved. They want to be involved on those fun projects and still be able to mentor and help staff grow and develop and impart everything that they've learned throughout their career. And so we make it a point to really team up a lot of our what we call our young professionals. We team them up with our senior professionals that are in that 1 to 2 years of retiring, or maybe they've retired already and they're on a part-time contract with us, that they can really talk with them and get experience and opportunities, because those senior engineers still get called to work on the toughest, most complex projects. And now they've got a few dedicated people just to them again, that they can then say, okay, why don't you go out and do this? This is how I want you to do it. Here's the whys. Go try it. Come back to me when you got questions. You think through it, and I'm here as a sounding board. And that is the best way to help mentor these young professionals, is give them a complex opportunity, let them work with some of the best in the business, because after they do it once, they will be able to do it for the rest of their lives.
And it's so meaningful for these gentlemen or women that continue to offer their wisdom, their knowledge, and that makes them feel good too. I mean, I know that because we had remarkable fellows at Bechtel when I was there. So anyway, I think this is great. You're on it. I mean, you've got a terrific plan in front of you, and your enthusiasm. I can't speak enough about your enthusiasm. I'm going to take us into your future. And one of the things that occurs to me is that you are published. So if we were going to write a publication, for example, for your future self, your future at Hatch, what does that look like? I mean, you're talking about working with different organizations at Hatch, new clients. What does it look like?
That is a very good question, because as I look to the future, there's so many opportunities that I love the detail. I love being involved in the detailed design and getting down into the granular aspects of a project, especially with my specialty. But I also love the high level planning, the global impacts, helping develop policy and precedents of why you do what you do and when you do it, and really help guide and govern of where we're going to go with future energy development, just not in the USA, but globally, and what that really means on a country by country or at a regional level. So for me, as I look towards, new publications, or what it would mean to me, is my next goal is really helping set what those new energy policies would be, and then helping set the roadmap of how we actually get there. Because there's many people out there that are really good about this is the big picture, here's the goal, but we forget about the action plan about how we're going to actually accomplish that goal. And so I want to be able to do that on the energy front, be that hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, dealing with nuclear and small modular reactors or hydrogen development, whatever it is. I want to help get us from where we're at today to where we need to be to meet all of our climate goals, all of our development goals, to help power either for all of our new technologies, to help a lot of those emerging markets and countries have the sufficient power so that they can develop their own internal teams, develop their own kids. Now there's many countries throughout the world that probably have some of the best and brightest children out there, but they're struggling because they don't have power. They don't have access to things that come with power. And through what we know and through my expertise, I'm really hoping that I can help leverage that going forward, because those are the projects, those are the opportunities. When people ask you that question, what makes you get excited to get up in the morning and go to work? I'm excited to get up and go to work in the morning when I can bring good to others.
I love this. You know what jumps out at me is the criticality of getting your speaking to young engineers on this platform. I mean, to get people excited. Some of these guys are in their classes and they're choosing civil, but they don't have a specialization. Talk about that future group of people that are, I don't know what I want to go into, rail and transit or hydro. What would you say? I mean,
So what I would tell them is find something. If you want to be an engineer, that's great, but find something in engineering that makes you happy. Don't worry about the dollars that it'll bring in. Find something that'll make you happy first. Because for me, I remember sitting in grad school or sitting in my junior year of college and sitting in a hydraulics class. I had went through all of these engineering classes. Math wasn't easy for me. And sitting in this hydraulics class, and it just clicked one day. I went from having to take copious notes all day long to never taking a note again in any of my water-related hydraulics, open channel flow type classes. And all of a sudden, it was like the light bulb went off. That was me. I wanted to be the hydraulics person. And I had many of my friends, the light bulb went off for them for structural engineering. That was what they wanted to do. They could have cared less about hydraulics, and I could have cared less about structural. I knew I needed to know enough about it, how it worked, but that's not what made me get up and go to school. And I think, and that's what helped really make my career go forward, is I found that one thing that I was good at, that I really liked. And that's what I would tell young pre-professionals in college is find that one thing. Find that thing that you really like, if it's civil, mechanical, electrical, and find something in there that you're really good at that just makes you happy when you do it because it just clicks with you. Because for me, that was the gateway. The hydraulics was the gateway to the hydropower world. But then because of my hydraulics expertise, I got to work with mechanical and electrical engineers, and I got to learn more about how those systems work. And so now I actually do less on the hydraulic side. For the most part, I don't do any, because I'm looking at the bigger picture and I need to understand how all of these different specialties fit to make one project work. And my counsel to these young engineers is start with something small, and you'll slowly grow your career to where you understand all of the other bits and pieces that fit together to form this giant puzzle. But don't worry about the puzzle right now. Worry about that one piece. Worry about you and what makes you happy and what you feel like you can be successful at.
It's a remarkable story that your work in hydrology, your classes were such a natural for you, and that's led you to Gannett Fleming and all these different changes. I mean, it's a remarkable story. Before I come to closure with our time together today, is there anything else that you would like to share with your audience? Because it's such a growth-filled story of how you've moved in your engineering practice.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I would share with people is when it comes to engineering is don't be afraid to say yes. Put your hand up for every opportunity that comes up. Even if you don't know exactly how that opportunity is going to end up or what exactly it is, put your hand up. For me, that's benefited my career. I made the decision at a very young age that I would always talk. Anybody that brought an opportunity before me, I would talk to them and I would evaluate it, and we would see if that's what I wanted for my career or for my family. So always have an open mind and be able to say yes, because here at Hatch, it's one of our biggest difficulties is finding staff that are willing to say yes. Are you willing to say yes to a 1 or 2 year relocation opportunity to go somewhere in the world to work on a project, to have those opportunities to grow your career at an accelerated rate? It takes the ability to say yes. So if you want to grow your career fast and you want to have amazing opportunities and be able to have all those stories that these older engineers have that you love hearing, you have to say yes.
That's exactly right. Have to. Well, I just want to extend my thanks and appreciation to Ryan Berg for your time together today. It's a remarkable story to come from your beginnings as having a dad owning an engineering company to weaving through to Gannett Fleming, Enel as the operator, Hatch Engineering. There's so much in between, but I think what you give to us today is your domestic and international experience and the complexities. And you do say yes. I mean, you've just said yes throughout your career, and so you're a good model for that. And I just want to extend my thanks for joining us today. My name is Sally Buckley. I am the Managing Director of Pragmatic Success, and I just want to thank you for listening to our Engineering Experts Group podcast. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Sally.